Hey, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the BJJ Foxcast. I am your host, Aimee Martinez, and today I have two great friends and my beautiful wife on the show. I have Dan and Andrea Ensing, fresh off our trip up to Mexico. Guys, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having us.
Complete honor to be here, guys.
Oh,
Yeah.
stop
Awesome.
it.
Spectacular. No, I'm being dead serious. It's really kind of cool to be on this.
Cool, man. It's a pleasure having you guys on, and we were at JJ's Cantina in Mexico, and actually, Andrea accused me of not remembering that I invited you guys on the show. I assure you.
Inebriated, so.
Well, you were.
I was.
Just kidding. Just kidding.
Was.
No, I was well on my way, but I remember inviting you guys. So yeah, it's good times. Welcome, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you. Like I said, it's really kind of cool to be here.
It is.
Not only is it a great podcast, but a lot of good friends. So.
Yeah. Thank you. Let's start with the weekend. So about 3 months ago, I think we were just talking, and I was like, hey, I want to spend my birthday in Mexico. And then I think Danny asked, when's your birthday? And I said October 28th. And you said, oh, that's our anniversary. Yep. So we all planned a trip to Mexico together.
Yep.
Birth-diversary.
Birth-diversary. And this is the end result of the birth-diversary. Yeah. I'll tell you what, we all made it back alive,
woohoo!
Which is awesome.
Yeah.
Tell me, what do you guys think about Mexico?
Love Mexico. Oh my gosh. It was relaxing and fun and yeah.
Yeah, no, 100%. It's great to go somewhere and, feel super welcome and have a lot of fun, but have almost zero responsibilities.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like
next to zero.
I mean, you can relax in your home. You can go out to the pool, but you look around and say, I got to trim that tree. Or there's a leak over there. Or I still got to get groceries. Right? That's zero responsibility when you go somewhere. And the place we stayed was spectacular.
So
it's fantastic.
And then the friendship was really
Yeah, for sure. And shout out to Cammie and Scott for hooking it up.
Yeah.
They left us a cake there for our celebrations.
So wonderful.
Yeah. So our friends Cammie and Scott owned the condo that we stayed in at La Princesa in Mexico, and it was awesome. First floor.
Yeah.
Just to you're looking out at the pool. Short walk to the beach. So it was fantastic, man. But I also want to get into. We spent a couple hours with the guys at Rocky Point Jiu-Jitsu.
Yes.
Shout out to them.
Oh,
woohoo!
Yeah, really.
They were so great.
Yeah, that was crazy how much fun that was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. It's a very small academy. Blocks from the Lay, where everybody, we've been going for years to get food. And it was literally right around the corner there.
Yep.
Yeah.
And they have an open mat on Saturday from 12 to 1?
10 to 12.
10 to 12.
10 to 12.
Yeah.
And I think after the third round, I was pretty well done, man. My head was pounding because I was, half hungover going in. But no regrets, man. It was good times.
Picture if you've watched the Daisy Fresh series on Flow Grappling about those guys in Mount Vernon, Illinois, and the old place they trained at. This is about half the size of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they run jiu-jitsu, MMA, Muay Thai, karate, personal defense out of this very intimate academy that is run by a brown belt and some purple belt and a bunch of blue belts, some white belts. And I walked in there, and every round was some of the toughest rounds I've had visiting an academy. And I've had a great experience in the last few years, training at some places, Ground Rules in Tinley Park, elite team up in Wisconsin, a few other places, and this ranks up with some of the best training I've ever had.
Yeah.
So, and they were super fun to be with, so.
Yeah, and they were so appreciative to have us in there. We just want to get some rounds in. Yeah. You know what I mean? And they were really into it. It was fun. It was fun teaching them some stuff too. Yeah. And I had to tell them that I'm a blue belt at best in Spanish. Because I'm a little out of practice, but then we were talking about like omoplata and stuff like that, so kind of came natural. And a lot of the stuff is show and tell anyway.
Right.
That's the way I learned, and so it was cool, man. It's like just being able to sit there and share what little knowledge I have, of the sport and some technique, and they're just like soaking it in, getting their cameras out like I would, if I'm being taught something. So that was really cool.
Yeah, when we looked around the room and we started talking to them, and then Armando Martin, the a bartender from Wrecked at the Reef who kind of organized it all. And he said, hey, a lot of us, changed our work schedule to be here today to train with you guys.
Yeah.
Was really cool. But, I speak zero Spanish except for amigo. Right.
And negro.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, when they're talking about black belt.
Yeah, and I heard negro, and I'm like, they talking about us? And they started chuckling. But I speak no Spanish, none at all. And trying to teach these guys gave me an appreciation for the Brazilian instructors, the guys who only speak Portuguese, right? And then come and teach us, and they got to teach through a translator, right?
Yeah.
And we've had some of those recently, right? We've had Luis de Oliveria's instructor, right? He comes and speaks very, broken English. Those two guys that Paul hosted, the MMA fighter and Renato Cantu or whatever his name was, him too. Very speaking through an interpreter. Interpreters, right? And then us trying to do it, like I'm like, now I know what it feels like.
Yeah.
To really and what's cool about it is it slows you down. And you have to be very deliberate with your movements, to show it versus speaking and showing it. It's almost like trying to teach just through a picture book.
Yeah.
And that was really kind of neat to do too. So, but yeah. And then, when we talked to them about how hard the rounds were afterwards, and they said to us, this to us was almost like being at a tournament. We were giving you guys tournament rounds.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, I sure would have liked to have known that walking in the dorm, man.
Yeah.
I would have, I would have maybe taken some Toradol and blowfish poison to take the edge off of the day. So,
but they had Oso was injured. He's got a bad foot. He was well enough to take the photo, but he was injured. And then you got a couple other guys, a couple blue belts and a white belt. And it was cool to see like that knowledge getting passed on to that kid. I can't remember his name, but cool kid.
Yeah.
You can tell he's got a little YouTube jiu-jitsu under his belt as well.
Yeah. Trained 3 to 4 months, and every time I went to pass his guard, there came the baseball bat choke. So luckily it wasn't my first rodeo or my second. So shout out to all the guys who've loop choked me and baseball bat choked me that made me aware of.
Yeah.
Coming to that, speaking at you, Tanner Payne.
Yeah.
So.
But I was really wishing I hadn't had those 4 or 5 last tequilas the night before, because my head was pounding in that 4th round. But right before we stopped, I was like, ugh.
Well, that was the nice thing is I think there was almost an unspoken language at that point is once all the colored belts and the white belt had gotten their roles, and we all kind of just looked at each other and said, no mas after 4 rounds.
Good?
Yeah, we're all good. And then we spent maybe, about a half hour or so just kind of walking and talking some stuff and them shooting video, and then and Oso, recording. And so Oso's his nickname, Spanish for bear. And if you look at the dude, he was 100%. He was a purple belt bear. They were listen. A lot of these guys were 100K plus, 200 pounds plus.
Yeah.
They were big dudes, and they were tough.
Yeah. So if you guys are in Rocky Point, go out and visit them, man, and drop a mat fee. Just help them out a little bit.
Yeah.
Keep the place going, because the more people doing jiu-jitsu, the better communities we'll have. So absolutely have to do it. But Andrea, you rolled too. Tell me about your rolls.
I did. Usually when I go to open mat, the guys don't typically want to roll with the girls, and these guys were like, "Hey, let's go," and I'm like, "Okay, let's do this." And I got a couple of, "You okay? Okay," and I'm like, "Yeah, beat me up, man. Let's go." And they were like, "Okay." But they were tough.
Yeah.
Man, blue belts, and I think that they thought just because I was a purple belt, right, that they like had to bring it to me, and I was like, man, I spent a lot of time fighting out of side control, and fighting, getting my back took. But no, it was great, and they were so welcoming, and I never once felt like they were using strength against me, or like I had to be afraid, or like I was going to get injured. Like they were just a great group of guys.
Yeah. They gave us a T-shirt as a party gift, which is cool.
It was cool.
Yeah,
it was cool.
I think the big takeaway from this is if you are going on vacation and you train jiu-jitsu, pack a friggin' gi.
Yeah, pack a gi.
Always.
Pack a gi, pack a rashi, get your belt, drop in at a joint, make some new friends, learn something, see how other academies are run. Because like I said, if you've seen the Daisy Fresh series, you recognize what those guys started in. These guys are starting at a gym a quarter or a half that size.
Yeah.
Right, but very similar. Low ceilings, looks like donated mats or stuff that they could find. Poles in the middle of the room, you're rolling around, a small mat space to train on, but it gives you an appreciation for when you train at a good size academy led by a black. When they were led by a brown belt, and that doesn't take away from their skill, but I've trained under a lot of black belts, since moving to Arizona, and even before I moved here. But you see, like, one, jiu-jitsu is universal. And two, you get a real appreciation for, if you've got an academy with a shower, or you've got an academy with high ceilings, you got an academy with air conditioning, and that kind of stuff, and you go to these places that don't have that, you recognize, hey, I've got it pretty easy, being able to train. There's zero language barrier with my instructors. I got, some days there's, 10 black belts on the mat where I train at when under Paul. Or go to your gym and you've got some great colored belts and some great upper belts, and there's 20, 30 people in a class, at your guys' academy, and you walk into somewhere where there's, 2 blue belts, three blue belts, a purple belt on the wall because he's injured. He just had surgery. So, heal up quick, buddy, because we're going to get down and, we're going to drop that business card on you next time we go down. A scrappy white belt. And what's funny is the only 2 dudes there that I felt like I could have probably blown through were just some really young kids training in, gym shorts and a T-shirt, doing no-gi rounds in the corner. I'm like, I'd like a piece of you guys right now if you don't mind. But,
I've got a garage full of, rash guards and gis that don't get used, so those are going to get taken down there.
Yeah, I think that's great.
Yeah, and donated. So definitely like to take a truckload of stuff, but obviously, can't do it. But
truckload of stuff and a busload of students.
Yeah, that'd be a lot of fun,
and just really get some great rounds in and share some knowledge.
Yeah, so. And they'd be so appreciative. So Andrea, I want to talk to you a little bit about your kind of path. And how we got here, right? You're probably wondering how I got in this predicament.
Exactly.
That came up a lot this weekend.
Yep.
But we spend a lot of time together. A lot of it's on the mats and talking. I spend some time at your house and stuff like that. But we've never had the opportunity to sit across from each other for hours. Having drinks and food and just talking and hearing your story, man. I was like, I got to get you on the show.
Yeah.
I mean, forget Dan. Let's pretend he's not here. All right. No, I'm just kidding, Danny. We'll get to yours too, buddy.
I'm good.
But yeah. So I remember. 5 years ago, you did your first class. I was there for that. And I remember the gi that went past your fingertips. You remember that?
It was Dan.
Yeah. White belt, gi past the fingertips. Yep. And you were, I didn't know this about you, but you were nervous as heck going in.
Yeah.
So tell me about that. Tell me about your first day.
Yeah. So I suffer from anxiety. And 8 years ago, maybe, before we moved here, I suffered a major panic attack at work, and almost to the point of being agoraphobic, where I would not leave the house without Dan, and just anxious all the time. I stopped driving. I quit my job, and literally, like, my life was inside my home unless Dan was with me. And fast forward a few years, and we moved here, and I knew I had to get a job, and some of my anxiety had lightened up a little, but I was still having a ton of anxiety. But being here in Arizona, there's just a healing vibes in the sun and not having rain and clouds and all that. And so I decided to kind of take this little health journey and really started challenging, like, my anxiety. Like, okay, you have anxiety, and oh, well, like, you're having a panic attack right now, and you got to deal with it. Yeah. Right. And then I started challenging that fear of failure, that all or nothing thinking, and started working out on my own and dieting and lost a little bit of weight. And Dan has always wanted me to kind of try jiu-jitsu, mainly because in Illinois, he would come home with, like, gi burn on his neck or, like, bruised fingers on his thighs, and I would give him a hard time. I knew it was jiu-jitsu, and he'd always be like, it's jiu-jitsu, I'm not cheating on you.
What are you into?
Yeah. And so he was like, just try. And I was like, okay, I'll do it. Like, I don't know what changed in me. I literally told myself, and I remember the post on Facebook of me trying on his gi, and I literally put in there, if I make a fool out of myself, well, at least I'll make somebody laugh. Like it is what it is, right?
Yeah.
And so I don't come from an athletic background. I mean, I was a figure skater long time ago, but, like, pianist, opera singer, like, not anything physical. At my highest, I was over 300 pounds. Like, just all these things conspired against me. I don't like being touched. I don't like bodily fluids, none of that. And I was like, okay, all right, I'll do it. And I went. And he didn't tell me about warm-ups. He didn't tell me that there were going to be warm-ups. And so
Gotta leave that part out, man.
Warm-ups came, and I was like, you didn't tell me I had to run. You didn't tell me I didn't know how to front roll. It took me 6 months to learn how to front roll. I didn't know any of this, but I tried. And you know what I discovered is that people cared that I tried.
Yeah.
Like, if I didn't try, that they would have been like, come on. Like, the fact that I tried and failed miserably, everybody was behind me and encouraging me. And so I did that fundies class. And this one, Aimee over here, she comes in, and it's the end, and we're doing a round, and it's me and Dan. And I don't know how to roll or anything like that. So, of course, he's got me in these positions. And I remember Aimee saying to Amber, the women's coach, what is Dan doing to that woman?
Your memory is better than mine.
And I'm pretty sure Dan's like, that's not a woman, that's my wife. And Aimee and Amber were like, women's class is right after. And I was like, all right. And then I just kept going back.
Good. That's awesome. Yeah.
Yay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just kept going. But I mean, like, I have trauma in my past. I've been in physically abusive relationships, sexual abuse in my past. So the thought of rolling around on a mat with somebody where they can touch my body, like, it was very, it can be very uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And so I think that fear held me back. But man, like, what a powerful experience to be able to overcome that. And as I trained, I became more and more confident. I saw my anxiety fading because I was like, I can do that. Like, I just did that hard thing. So driving to the grocery store by myself is nothing.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So,
wow.
Yeah.
So is that bad, hon? You couldn't go to the grocery store by yourself, stuff like that?
Oh, yeah. No, in fact, there were times where I would say I was going to go to the grocery store, and I'd drive, and I'd get there, and I'd walk in, and I'd walk out and leave.
Whoa.
I'm like, I can't do this. I can't do this.
Poor Danny's at home starving.
Yeah.
And you're just leaving the fucking grocery store.
Wasting away to nothing. I was a featherweight before I moved to Arizona.
Nope. He was a big boy back then. He was fine. Oftentimes I would push myself through, and I would be like, just grab this and go. Grab this. Just go. That's what I kept telling myself. Just go. And I never stopped until we moved here to go, hey, if this is my new normal, then I have to deal with it. Right? I was always trying to, like, anxiety myself out of anxiety, if that makes any sense. Like, if I just handle it well enough, like, and then I was like, man, no, like, this is my new normal. Okay.
Wow.
All right. Well, we're going to have a panic attack.
Yeah.
And you're going to have to deal with it.
Yeah. I have to change the camera angles in here because I don't like them, and I can't focus right now. Do you mind if
I don't mind.
take a quick second?
Go for it.
Josh, I'm so sorry. You knew that was coming. Hang on one second. Okay, we're back. So sorry about that. I had to change the camera angles because they were driving me crazy, and now, better.
There you are.
Much better. Yay. All right. So we were talking about your anxiety.
Yeah.
And overcoming that, you kind of toughed it out.
Yeah.
I see you today. You're not that person. What did you do between the time you were toughing it out and now to deal with that anxiety? You can go to the grocery store. You can go to the store. I've seen you do stuff on your own.
Yeah.
You've traveled.
Yes.
Without that guy.
Yes. Well, God love Carrie. Love you, Carrie. I still refuse to drive on the interstate.
Okay.
I can't do it.
Is it because you have a 20-year-old Jeep that'll blow up if you do?
Nope.
Oh, that's
nope,
me.
That's you.
That's me.
No,
Never mind.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's definitely him.
Yeah.
Honestly, I feel trapped on the interstate. especially those long stretches where there's no exit. I can't do it, which is funny because I do jujitsu and I get trapped under big people a lot.
Yeah, I was going to ask you. Like,
go figure.
Okay. Yeah.
Go figure. I'll work on it. But yeah, no, I traveled. And I think honestly, that moment that I decided, this is your new normal. Panic attacks are your new normal, and you're not going to just make them go away. You have to figure out how to get through them, right? Like I think in therapy they always say like the only way through it is through it.
Through it, yeah.
Right? And so once I made that decision, like, all right, go ahead. Like, because a lot of my anxiety is, and I don't know if it's related to high blood pressure or what, but it's like I feel like I'm going to pass out. And I would literally start telling myself, well, then do it. Go ahead, pass out. And like the rebel in me was like, no, I'm not gonna pass out. And so challenging myself, and now I'm like, dude, I feel that coming on, and I had some of that in when we were in Rocky Point, and now I'm like, dude, it's been 8 years. You haven't passed out once. What makes you think this time's different? Right?
Yeah.
And so then it'll clear up. Like, oh yeah. I've been through this before. But that's honestly what I've done is to challenge my thinking, and then action conquers fear, and that's what I've really tried to live out my life is you're always going to be afraid until you do it, right? And that's how it is. We all compete, right? In the bullpen, it sucks. Walk into it, it
so
sucks.
Sucks so much.
But then you slap hands, bump fists, and the fear goes away because it's jiu-jitsu.
It's just jiu-jitsu.
Right? And it's the action. It's the action of doing it. If I never got on the mat and slapped hand, bump fist, I'd still be afraid. I'd be in fear. So action conquers fear, and that's kind of what I've started to live my life is, all right, you're afraid? Cool. Go do it.
So it wasn't like a therapist helping you, like give you the tools. It wasn't like just the actions that you were taking through the lessons learned in jiu-jitsu, or to help you kind of conquer that. I mean, you still get the anxiety.
Yeah.
But you pushed through it thanks to the stuff that you learned on the mats?
Right. Yeah.
Wow.
And in fairness, my mom is a psychotherapist. She's been a psychotherapist since I was 12 years old. So I'm sure a lot of that has rubbed off on me. And I do have the ability to, I've had a couple of major panic attacks, and my God love my mom. She lives right next door to me. And so I've had a couple in years past had major panic attacks where I immediately run to her house and I'm like, dude, you got to get me through this.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, for the most part, it has been jiu-jitsu and what I've learned through jiu-jitsu. I mean, I still remember, your first academy, the first location. I had never trained no-gi. Like I was cool with gi, and then no-gi made me feel naked, right? Like the gi makes me feel comfortable.
It's very comfortable. Yeah.
Yeah, there's something putting on that gi. It's almost like an armor. It's a thick piece of material that covers you, which is why there's that whole thing of 10 years there's not going to be any gi anymore. But that's not going to happen. There's always going to be gi because people enjoy wearing that, and it's a protection in some instances.
Right,
so.
but I think we wanted to support. Koa was teaching the inaugural class, and I was like, yeah, I'm going to do it. And so I did, and I was uncomfortable, but I did it. And then we're rolling. And this guy, like, he mounts me, and he pins me down, and I lost it.
Well, let's go a little deeper in this. I mounted her. I got high mount with my knees in her armpits, right? So you're completely pinned, and the UPA doesn't work. And then I pinched her nose closed.
Yeah, he covered my face.
Covered my mouth.
But I mean,
that's so like fucked up.
And he's that's a really dick move.
Yeah, well,
so
kind of looking back at it, I've got to agree.
But no, and here's where I'm going with this, right? Because I was afraid of no-gi. Action conquers fear. In that moment, I turned into a puddle. Like I was sobbing, and what it brought up is early on in college, I had been date raped, and I had completely like shut that out, And just the act, like the body remembers things. And him doing that, and his eyes got about this big, but I was then able to process that. I was able to be like, oh, yeah, that happened. Let me work on this, right? And now I do no-gi, no problem. Now I get, he could put me in that position right now, no problem. So
let's go for it. Move the table. Just kidding. Sorry. You said he can put me in that position right now. Let's move the table.
5 on the clock.
5 on the clock.
I approve it. But like, so again, something that a lot of women that have been traumatized, they say, I don't want to roll with men, or I don't want to do this. Do it. Put yourself, be vulnerable, put yourself in that position, and then work through what comes up. Like it's such a benefit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Danny, what is it about training with your wife that has you like push her to that level? Do you even think about that, or is it something that you kind of just do and then all of a sudden it turns? I mean, I can imagine like it erupts and it's like confetti, and then when you put the pieces back together, you kind of have a conversation about that. I can imagine. I'm just thinking, right?
Yeah. So one of the things that I do, outside of here, and we've talked about it, is I help. I work with a guy and a couple weekends a month trying to teach kids how to drive, right? And you always get parents walk up to you, oh, you're so patient with my kid, and I could never do this with my kid. And I'm not emotionally invested in your child. They're not mine.
Yeah.
Right? I don't love them. I don't care for them. I don't mean that, but like I don't care for them daily, right? I don't feed them. I have no investment in them beyond what we're doing now for this next 3 hours.
Yeah.
Okay. And but what ends up happening is I don't have that emotional investment where if they don't listen to what I'm doing, I don't get frustrated with them. Okay. My investment in them is to make sure that they're safe, because if they're a safe driver, then we're all a safe driver.
Yeah.
Right? Like if you don't know how to cook, it doesn't affect me. But if you're a garbage undertrained driver, there's a good chance I'm going to see you on the roadway some chance. And if I'm up next to you and you don't know what you're doing, it could affect me. And it could affect you. It could affect everybody in this room. So what I'm trying to say is rolling with my wife, I'm emotionally invested in her and I want to see her get better. But I think what frustrates me the most is I am 100% believe she can do everything. I don't believe there are any limits she has in what she can achieve in life. She puts the limits on herself and the barriers on herself. So when she tells me she can't do something, I get pissed about it. Because if she saw herself through my eyes, she would see somebody who doesn't see that, who doesn't see somebody who can't do something. I know she can because I've seen her do it, right? I've seen her move on the mat. I've seen her turn up the pace on me where I'm just kind of playing maybe just some half-ass grabbing something like, oh, here it is. And the next thing you know, it's like, holy fucking shit. You're probably wondering how I got in this position, right? And it's like I've got to literally scramble at that point to recover my position because, she's gotten side control, she's got her hips turned, she's getting chest to chest on me. She's getting the grip, she's getting the wedges, to where you can't move. And it's the things I can see her do, right? And I believe she can do it, And it's not even so much that I think a lot with jiu-jitsu is people don't care if you can do it to a point, right? People do want to see you be able to achieve. They want to know that you're going to at least try to do it or at least attempt to do it, right? Yeah. And when she doesn't want to attempt to do it because she fears she's going to fail, right? That's when I get frustrated, because I know she can. And I've seen her do that stuff in life, right? So that's where I get frustrated. And I hate to say frustrated, but that's where I get frustrated with her is when she doesn't even want to try doing it because I know she can. Yeah. And I think everybody in this room knows she can. And I think her instructors know she can. When she got promoted to purple belt and you heard the speech that Paul Nava out of, Aries, Arizona said, she inspires him with the posts she puts together and the things she does, And I think there's a lot of people out there that are that way. So I think that's where, people will be like, there's been people on the mat are like, are those two getting divorced when they're done?
and then there's the rest of us going, they're fine. They're fine.
They're fine. They're just working through whatever's going on,
process.
But then there it is. So I've had to learn to be more patient in that aspect, that we all grow and learn in different aspects. Because I'll tell you what, right? If I probably looked back at a tournament, I guarantee, listen, if there's no coaches out there that have been frustrated with me with the idiot things that I've done at a tournament, or on a mat, like, God bless them. Because I've just done some dumb stuff like, hey, you know what'd be great right now? What if I just pulled mount?
Yeah.
You know, right? You know, you think you're doing something, and the next thing you know, you're like, I can't figure out why I just did that, you know?
So I was watching, gosh, what was it? It was some kind of like NFL thing. And there was a head coach that was talking to one of his players. And he was coming down, usually like the head coach is a CEO, right? And then you have the coordinators and the position coaches, and there's probably some hierarchy below that we don't know about because we're not in that position. Maybe you do, I don't. But anyway, by the time it gets to the player, it should be like a chain of command type of thing.
Correct. Yeah.
But there's a head coach like blasting this player at a practice. I think it was like a preseason practice. It was like, you know, get cut or make the team kind of situation. And the head coach starts going like almost condescendingly, like, you know, hey man, you know what? It's fine. It's fine. You're doing great. He goes, is that what you want to hear? He says, do you know why I never got yelled at in college? Because I was never going to see the field.
Yeah.
And I heard that. I was like, you know, I never got yelled at either.
Yeah.
Fuck. They knew something I didn't. I was never going to see the fucking field. But that's that emotional investment as a coach. When you come down on a kid, right? It's because you care about them.
Right.
Because you see that potential in them, right? You see that, just want to bring it out of them or beat it out of them, whatever you want to do.
Right. You're right. You know what? When you start seeing people investing time in you, it's because they see the potential and the opportunity. And when you start feeling someone pulling away from you and you don't see that investment anymore, that's when you got to kind of start, you know, reflecting inside, hey, you know, am I taking plays off myself? Am I taking time off? Am I not giving my 100%? Because here's the thing, man, like, no one in this room is hooked themselves to the gravy train of jiu-jitsu because there's $1 million payday. right. There's a pretty good chance everybody sitting around this table right now is working to the afternoon of their funeral.
Yeah.
You know, right. And it's just the nature of the thing, right?
Yeah.
Like no one's going to, you know, there's 0.1% of people out there who are going to make a crap ton of money off of jiu-jitsu and be able to do it for a living and live comfortably.
And they all live in Texas.
Right. But even like the super successful people we know that are in jiu-jitsu, the academy owners and the people who started Aries and kind of the figureheads of Aries and everything, right? They're still grinding. Yeah. Right. They're not sitting back just watching the money roll in and just, you know, minting money. Right. They're not like, how am I going to gold plate my gold with all the money I'm making tomorrow? That's just not happening. They're still grinding every day. Yeah. You know, so when one of those people, when one of your coaches wants to invest that time with you, you got to meet them halfway, at least with the effort. And we're not talking black belt world champion effort. Right. No, we're talking about showing up. Yeah. Right. We're talking about showing up with a positive attitude. Right. And I say that 80% of getting good at something is show up and be positive. Yeah. Right. Because if you don't show up, it doesn't matter how much experience or how good you are. If you don't show up, you're not going to get great. You're never going to increase. But if you do show up and you got a crappy attitude and nobody wants to roll with you or nobody wants to train with you or nobody wants to be around you, I don't care if you show up for every class offered every day. If you got a piss poor attitude, no one's going to want to be with you. Yeah, and you know, the same thing could be said for the leaders, right? The leaders could be a white belt. It could be a leader. But there's some folks who, you know, show up late. And they're sitting on the sidelines taping up, and they're distracting people who want to work by talking to them. Like, oh, you know, I was doing this or whatever. And I'm like, shut up and get on the mat. Yeah. You're 20 minutes late. Your fingers have to hurt now. Okay, don't fucking tape. Excuse my language. Don't tape up your fingers. It's too late for that. And that's one thing that, like, I need to do a better job at policing, because if you're going to be a leader on the team, then be a leader on the team and set the example. I'm not asking for a black belt world champion level example. You could be a white belt and be a leader. Yeah. Right. I've adopted a phrase over the last year or so that Paul Nava uses all the time. It's be friends after. Yeah. Right. I'll slap hands, bump fists with you at the start of the 5-minute round. And then everything after that, we'll slap hands, bump fists, and chat about it after class. But you know, we'll be friends after. And I'll tell that to people. You'll see people talking around, you know, between, you know, hey, we're gonna chat. Or hey, what did you just do to me? Hey, let's be friends after. Yeah. Okay. There's a time for us to be friends, and it's when training is done, and we can, you know, we can go through the day, we can go through what happened, we can talk about it, but we're not going to do it, you know, during that. And you know, you'll see that especially in beginner classes or fundamental classes where there's they take a little bit of time to get together and find their partner. And you're only talking 3-minute rounds sometimes, maybe 2-3-minute rounds, or, 3 or 4 1-minute positional rounds, And so kind of backing up to the coach thing, like when I was coaching youth sports, one of the things I heard is if you got one coach that's going to be a hard ass, you got another coach that's going to kind of be kind of chill, right? You can't have 2 hard ass coaches, out on the field all the time, because kids are just going to feel beat up at the end of the day. So you got one guy who's going to, kind of be the sharp piece of glass. And then you got the other dude who's got to be the piece of glass that's been in the ocean for a while and is a little smoothed over. Okay. So you got to recognize what coach you're with and who's doing what at that point, right? So, Ramsey Green's teaching the fundamentals class now at Arizona under Paul Nava. And he's kind of a chiller dude sometimes, right? Sometimes. But when he's at fundamentals class and he's kind of chill and I'm over there working the clock, because my role, I think of as an assistant instructor, is his responsibility is to ensure the instruction is good and ensure that the kids are doing well. My responsibility is to kind of be like, he's contact, right? And I learned this in law enforcement. He's contact. He's got contact with the students. I'm his cover, looking around the room, what needs to be covered. Does the music need to get, toned down so he can talk? Does the clock need to get stopped or started? I don't want him to have to worry about those little things. I want him to care about one thing, the freaking instruction that he's putting out there, because that's what his job is, right? And my job is to support him so he can do that. So anyways, so his is the contact and announcing what we're going to be doing and how we're going to be doing it. And mine is the cover to make sure that the clock gets going and the music gets turned up for the rounds. But it's also the other thing of, like, if I feel like people are just kind of sitting there and they're taking a little bit of time, hey, my thing is, hey, you've only got 5 minutes in this class. You're not going to get a lot of rounds. You're wasting your time to get better. And I'll say that, right? This is your time. Use this time to get better, right? You don't have a lot of time right now. Get on the mats, get the work going.
Yeah, no, I love it. I love it. Absolutely. And knowing your role, that's important. There's coaching that needs to go on for coaches, and we do a lot of it at our academy. And, I guess the advantage that Ramsey has having you in the room is you kind of know that role, like, automatically, because it's part of your past. Some people don't. You know what I mean? And they just kind of like follow your lead. But I mean, it's a learn over time type thing. But it just kind of is what it is at that point. But Andrea, I gotta bring it back to you because I want to talk about when you talk about you kind of glossed over a few things, and we can talk as much or as little as we want about this. Yeah. But the anxiety and all the other stuff comes from somewhere. So tell me about growing up. And because we talked about it a little bit when we were in Mexico, but there were a lot of drinks in us, so I don't know if you want to go this far. But we can talk as much or as little as you want about this. Yeah. But let's talk about where this I feel the anxiety comes from. Yeah. Tell me about growing up as a kid.
So I grew up a preacher's kid, and it sucks. like talk about being on display, being on a pedestal, being like. Man, I remember like people were constantly like expecting me to be perfect, right? Because I'm the preacher's kid. And I have this like little rebel heart in me. I don't want anybody to tell me I have to be perfect because, well, fuck you, I'm not. And I'm never going to be perfect, right? But like to the point where I remember as a kid, if my mom wanted to get a bottle of wine from the grocery store, we would have to walk through the grocery store to make sure that nobody knew her in it. And then she would run in, grab what she needed, and get out. Right? And if somebody was there, well, then she wasn't getting her wine.
Okay, so it was wine. It wasn't like booze.
Oh yeah, no. Like just a bottle of wine. And
so not some Don Raspato or whatever. Don Julio
Reposado. Hey-o.
Yes.
And then obviously there was preacher dad. Right. And then there was just typical, like, you're not holding the flashlight right, dad. Right. like we all know that dad. Yeah. Right. And it just like, it just fucked me up because I'm not a fake person and I'm never going to be a fake person. And the fact that I almost had to be this fake person just, it pushed me over the edge. I mean, and then on top of that, like I've got sexual abuse as a child from a deacon. You know what I mean? And there's nothing, obviously we know that there's imperfect people not just in the church, in the world, everywhere, right? But talk about like
is that with your dad being the pastor?
Yeah,
Whoa,
yeah,
okay.
my dad being the pastor, like, and so obviously there's it's the same kind of shit that you get in the world. Is I've got my this public persona, and then I've got who these people really are, right? And so I think I just stopped trusting people that. And you guys have dealt a little bit with of this with me, right? At tournaments where I apologize for losing because, deep down inside, I actually think that you guys really, think that I'm a loser. And like, because
Well, I'm glad we're all here today, Andrea.
But finally it's out in the open.
I don't trust that this is actually that you actually do like me, right?
No, we love you.
Because, well, thank you. I love you too. but because I grew up with that duality that, the people that I interact with, there's another side to them. And so I feel like the anxiety started because I was always trying to figure out what that other side was.
Waiting for the other shoe to drop.
Or trying to then be who they actually wanted me to be. And I became this like, trying to please everybody, trying to
hit a target that you can't see.
Yes.
And it's constantly moving.
And God damn it, I don't even want to go near that target because it feels yucky. It's not me.
Yeah.
And then I learned to not trust myself because I would say, okay, this is this person. I know this is who this are and I can trust them. And then damn it, if I'd be fucking, blindsided and I guess I was wrong again. And so the anxiety came because I was constantly making assumptions, I think, and constantly trying to control things, whether it was to control myself or to control the world around me. And I snapped one day. I was working for Feed My Starving Children in Illinois, and a job I had done for, I don't know, a year and a half, 2 years. And I would get up in front of people and I would talk. That was literally my job, was to talk to these people, explain about our company. And I got up one day and I was giving my speech and I think I felt fake at that point because I'd done it. So it was like a script by that point because I'd done it so much. And there was a guy in the audience just staring at me. And I lost it because I was like, he knows I'm being fake.
Whoa.
And I had this like panic attack, like out of body, like, and I'm going to put on a video and get off the stage. Like, because it was like that hit me and I don't know, like something broke in me. So I just think growing up in that kind of environment and, now, obviously, I've other shoe is I learned a lot of great things from being a preacher's kid, right? I learned how to be real. I learned how to not how to work through some of that, and I don't know. There's probably still more for me to dissect, but yeah. I'm pretty sure that's where it stems from.
Yeah, I can imagine you probably had a lot of pressure too, being a pastor's kid, and like, oh, we're going to start this whatever youth program, and you could be a big part of that. Yeah.
Oh yeah. But here's the thing, like I rebelled so hard, and if this tells you this will tell you exactly like verbatim what it was like. I got heavily into drugs and alcohol. Became very promiscuous. Like that was my lifestyle. And we're talking, I'm like 13 at this point, right? And so I still remember one of the girls that I was quote unquote friends with. I don't think we were friends at that point, but our families were friends and we'd known each other and we were in the same neighborhood. Literally, her mom at one point said to her, "Why can't you be more like Andrea?" And now this girl went to school with me, so she knew me. She knew the girl that was getting into fights, that was like coming to school drunk, right? That's how good I was.
Whoa.
That's how good I was, because the parents didn't ever see that. They didn't know that. And they actually thought that their kids should be more like me.
Wow.
So that was the duality of who I was.
Whoa.
Yeah.
What kind of drugs?
Anything I could get my hands on. I mean, I would huff hairspray if I didn't have anything, like anything. I mean, you name it. And I was like, yeah, I'm in. Let's try it. Let's do it. So yeah, whatever was around.
Wow.
No shit.
Yeah.
So how long did that go on?
Well, I wound up, somebody was like, hey, there's this new thing called PCP. And I was like, all right, it wasn't new, obviously, but for the 16-year-old, it was new.
Yeah.
And they were like, look, we can't get our hands on actual PCP, but we can get embalming fluid. And so we dipped a joint in embalming fluid and I smoked it. And that was the first time I ever had a panic attack.
Whoa.
A major panic. Well, one, I literally got into a fight with this girl who kept staring at me, and it was my reflection in the mirror. But after that, like, something snapped, and I like time slowed, and I couldn't hear people talk. Like, their mouths would be talking, and I'm like, huh? Like, it was just such a different experience from cocaine and, anything else I had done before, that it was my very first ever panic attack.
Wow.
And it was enough for me to be like, I'm done.
Yeah.
I'm done. Because we talked about this. I grew up with an all or nothing.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So I was like, either I'm doing all the drugs or I'm doing none of the drugs. And so that pendulum swung to none of the drugs. And by about 18, I got sober and was like, I'm done. That's it. Done.
Huh.
Yeah.
Wow. And do you kind of attribute the drug use to the trauma that you suffered, as part of, that going through all the stuff that you went through? Or was it kind of an escape, or were you just doing was it a combination of just an escape and being rebellious, or what was it?
It was a combination of all of the above. One,
by the way, before you answer, I'm sorry. Your relationship with your dad is really good.
Ooh,
I just want everybody to know that. Yeah, your relationship with your parents is
great.
good. Yeah.
They're our neighbors.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
I don't want
give you a heads up.
I don't want anyone to feel like he's the villain.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, my dad is great and amazing and great.
Has a lot of cool preacher stories.
Yeah, yes, he does. And he will love to share them with you if you ever want to.
Sorry about that.
No, you're fine.
Yeah.
A combination, but I honestly think the big driving factor was I did not have a lot of friends. I was not, I don't know how to put this. I was not a friendly person at that point in my life. And I think that was a coping, that was a I'm not going to be vulnerable. Like I'm a hard shell and you are not going to crack me. And so I did not have a lot of friends. And the friends that I did have, they did a lot of drugs.
Yeah.
And I wanted them to still be my friends. And I held out for a while. And then I remember one day they were like, let me just blow it in your face. And I was like, all right.
Yeah.
Okay. And I got this contact high, and I remember just being like, yeah, like life was good. And I felt genuine happiness, which I don't think I had felt in a long time. And I like not a care in the world. Right. So then it was like, all right, how much further down this rabbit hole can I go? How much better can I feel?
Yeah.
Right. So it started out just to kind of be a people pleaser and to be like, yes, please like me. Look, I do drugs too. And then it turned into that's a bit of all right.
Yeah. Well, I can kind of give you like a quick background on me. We moved around a lot. I mean, we moved around. A lot of it when I was a kid was within our hometown, but then we moved away for a bit and came back. And one thing I can tell you is, you automatically have something in common with people who smoke weed.
Yes. Yes.
We both like weed. We just became best friends,
Yes.
like right that second,
Yes.
right? And you light one up, and next thing you know, you're hanging out, and it's the easiest. I hate to say this, but it's the easiest. It's almost like playing a sport,
Yeah.
right? As
Yeah.
soon as you make the team,
Yep.
hey, you're part of the team. You're
Yep.
part of the group, right?
Yep.
You can walk into any campus. I mean,
Yep.
at least when I was a kid, and spark a joint
Yep.
up with somebody, and you're friends
Yeah.
from that point on, and that's what
Yeah.
you have in common. It's
Yeah.
that simple.
I used to walk around and I would be like, a friend with weed is a friend
Yeah.
indeed.
Yeah. Yeah. But I didn't stay in any place long enough to like be in competitive sports. I did swimming for a while, but
Yeah.
I mean, we moved around quite a bit, so I was going like different, swim teams, and
Yeah.
I was always the outsider, but I could always
Yeah.
hang out in the parking lot, smoke weed with my friends.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, and here's the thing, like, none of these friends actually went to my high school.
Okay.
They went to a high school that was like 20, 30 minutes away.
Oh.
Right? Like the people that went to my high school, I just don't think they wanted anything to do with me.
Yeah.
So it was another one of those like, man, if I lose them, I got nothing.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
So that didn't carry over to college, though.
It did not.
Yeah.
No. So I graduated high school. I did a few years at community college because I didn't know what I wanted. I didn't know what I wanted to do. And then by the time I went to college, I was 100% like completely sober. Like the pendulum had swung.
Yeah.
Right. And I was like, no. In fact, I think I was like one of those emo kids in college that would have the X on my, you know what I mean? I was like, no, I don't do anything. So that became my identity.
Yeah. Yeah. How'd that work out?
It worked out great in college. But again, it wasn't me. I truly don't think I found me until 10 days before my 40th birthday when my husband made me try that jiu-jitsu class.
No shit.
I truly...
Jiu-Jitsu.
Yeah.
I truly believe that for the first time in my life, that was me. Right? And there were Aimee, God love you, Kelsey, like those girls gave me permission to be me. Like I never felt like I had to join them or be them or not that I wouldn't want to because #goals, like you're freaking amazeballs. But there was a freedom in jiu-jitsu, a freedom in that I could show up and not front roll and not front roll and not front, and then finally front roll. And everybody's like, yes, like it was a collective accomplishment.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
There's freedom in jiu-jitsu. I don't know how else to describe that. And so I think I'm sad that it took me 40 years to discover who I am. But damn if I'm not glad that I discovered it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right about that freedom because, I mean, there's just something, not just like, yours is a very extreme example of what jiu-jitsu can do to help.
Yeah.
But there's people who just like, they've got the world by the balls and they just don't know it.
Yeah.
They're so worried about bullshit.
Yep.
And then they get on the mat and they don't have to worry about bullshit for an hour. You got to worry about farting.
I don't.
I worry about farting.
Not a bit.
Yeah. So, I mean,
you're going to make me fart. I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
Sorry.
But that's really, I mean, I use that as a joke, but it's really true. I mean, you basically work your cares away.
Yeah.
Because you're so in the moment.
Right. It's hard to care about other stuff when you're worried about getting, I mean, this is an extreme way to put it, choked unconscious or your arm broken off your body.
Yeah.
Right? Like you can't sit there and think, did I start the laundry before I left? Right? And then the next thing you know, some dude's got neon soul.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And it's just grinding the life out of you.
Yeah.
And you're like, fuck.
You have to pay attention in that moment to
Right.
what your
Right.
opponent partner
Correct.
is
Right.
doing.
Yeah.
And that there's no room for the laundry or the dishwasher or that person in receiving who pissed
Right.
you off at work.
Yeah.
Right, and not even so much what your opponent's doing is what are you doing that your opponent's going to use that's going to be advantageous for them.
Yeah.
Because if you do something dumb like reach out to grab something when you shouldn't and you extend that arm and it becomes a lever that they can wedge against their body, you're screwed. You're done.
screwed,
That's
yeah.
it. That's all you get. And especially if you do it against somebody who's good. Like, somebody who's got a little bit of training and a little bit of experience, like you're screwed. You're done.
Yeah.
But at the very essence, what it boils down to is jiu-jitsu keeps you present.
Yeah, 100%. Yes,
You
100%.
can't. Yeah, you can't wonder if you started the laundry. You can't also think about, oh, I have to do laundry. Like, no, you stay in the present.
Yeah.
And like, if we could harness that power for the entire day, man.
Yeah, there have been times where I was in a class and my training partner sat next to me. And we would be looking at the technique, and I'm a nerd when it comes to technique. Like, I watch every bit of it, and when somebody shows it, I hope that they show it at least 3 times, because the first time I'm looking at like broad strokes, and then okay, what are the feet doing? What are the knees doing? Oh, look what he did with his shoulder. He didn't say that, but he did that, and so I'm going to try that anyway. So I'm looking at it, and then everybody breaks, and then my training partner will say like, "I'm never going to use this shit." And I'm sitting there going, you're fucking missing the point. You're missing the point, because it could be used on you. And if you understand it, you can dissect it and say, he has to have his shoulders this way because that's what you saw. So I'm going to make sure he can't turn his shoulders that way. And I'm going to take this move away from him. And you're just missing. You're missing the point.
Yeah, that's what it's something I've actually been wanting to bring up in the fundamentals classes is when you learn a technique or when you learn an escape. If you learn an armbar technique and you're paying attention to how to do it correctly, you're also learning the escape, right? Hey, if the instructor's saying to you, you got to get that elbow across the line of the stomach, right? So you get it isolated and you've got the pressure, counter pressure. Well, what's the escape? Well, get the elbow through their crotch to the other side where they can't put pressure on it anymore. Yeah. Or if they're like, hey, the escape to this is blah, 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 and then you think to yourself, okay, well, then if I'm in this position, I know what his escape's going to be, but I've even gotten really like in the last probably 4 to 5 months, I've gotten to the point now, like when you said you're next to your training partner, if I know I'm going to be training with somebody and they're showing a technique, I'm 90 degrees the opposite way. So my training partner's got one view of it, and I've got that opposite view. That way we're both not sitting next to each other, and then we get somewhere, and we're like, holy shit, what are we supposed to do now? I was like, well, I saw it from this angle, so I know what I'm supposed to do here, right? You walk me through that angle there, and then we can kind of piece it together. So, and that's a lot of, like, getting on the mat with the proper mindset of how am I going to learn what I'm doing. It's not just showing up, but it's the proper mindset and being receptive to the training and figuring out where do I need to be and what am I looking for in these situations.
Yeah, for sure.
And fun fact. You might never use it intentionally, but you may find yourself in the position where you need it. We had a snow scraper in our car because we moved here from Illinois, and we thought we should take it out. We're never going to need it. Son had a wrestling tournament in Winslow. Guess what we needed?
Yeah.
Right? So you may, I'm never going to use deep half. Guess what I needed to do at Jiu-Jitsu, at Worlds, Master Worlds? Deep half, right? So yeah,
you just spit on yourself and punch yourself in the face for doing it.
Exactly.
Disgusting.
But you don't.
Plus, it's such a spectacular self-defense for the street. Nothing beats when you're in the street and you want to pull deep half. It's just you're unstoppable.
The deep half and the straight ankle lock is so underutilized in the streets.
But that's what I'm saying. You might never use it intentionally.
Right.
You may never purposely put that in your game and set that up. But damn, if you don't need to use it when you need to use it.
Yeah.
Well, and here's the deal, right? Like, you may not be using such and such a technique at blue belt and purple belt, right? But you may find yourself rolling with an upper belt, brown belt or black belt. And because of the move that they're counter to your move, you find yourself in that position where you could use it then, right? Because they've put themselves in it because it's an advanced technique that you're learning and you're going against somebody who's advanced. And now it's, hey, I found myself in this position and I never thought I would be in this position before.
Yeah.
So.
Right.
Yeah, I was telling the guys in Mexico, my goal when I roll is to make it as boring as possible because, the older I get, I still love to roll like fast and, play hard, but if I could get mount in 3 seconds and hold you there for the whole round, that's what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
And I was telling them, like, I want people, I told them this, I said, I want you guys to complain when I leave how boring the rounds were with me. All he did was sit on top of me. He didn't do anything. That's exactly what I want. That's exactly what I'm looking for.
I call it slow cooker jiu-jitsu. You just take a crappy cut of meat, throw it in a slow cooker for 6 hours, and at the end of the day, it tastes pretty darn good.
That's right.
right? But that's just it. If I got 5 minutes, I got 5 minutes. But I mean, that's the cool thing about jiu-jitsu, right? I roll with some guys who are pretty quick, pretty flashy, pretty awesome, right? And that's not me, right? I'm pretty fundamental. You could go your entire life rolling fundamental jiu-jitsu, and you could be really good at jiu-jitsu.
Oh, you could be dominant,
right?
Especially against somebody who knows who knows nothing.
Right.
You could be significantly better than, I mean,
Yeah.
you can be dominant.
Right. I think about, and I remember I went to an open mat at Paul's it was on a Sunday. I didn't put 2 and 2 together, but it was before Master Worlds and Jiu-Jitsu Con, right? And I walked in, it was a Sunday, and I'm thinking, you know what? I had something going on that week to where I knew I was going to miss a training class. So I'm like, let me get an open mat in so I can at least start the week out with some training so I'm not trying to chase it at the end of the week, okay?
Yeah.
And I get in there, and it was the usual dudes who show up to it, and then, like, Livio, right? You know, featherweight, you know, world champion walks in, and then Edris walks in, right? World champion, right? Masters, right?
Yeah.
I think Italo was there.
Italo was there, and no, Italo wasn't there, but Alif,
Oh, God.
Alif, right?
That's it.
Up at Pinnacle,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Walks in, right? And there were a couple other guys, Mateus, right? Another, you know, super young savage,
Yeah.
right? And all these guys who I'm naming are 175 pounds or less, okay? And Ramsey was there too, and I mean, he was rolling with some of these guys, and I remember comparing notes with him after the fact. But anyways, I remember rolling. I never rolled with Alif before, but I knew who he was, and I knew he was good, and he's not that big of a guy, and he did nothing flashy. And I wanted to quit with 30 seconds left.
Wow.
It was just an insane. I just got the crap beat out of me.
Yeah.
Right. And he actually said, no, there's 30 seconds left. Right. And we did it. Right. But I don't remember him doing anything flashy. I don't remember doing anything fancy. I remember him just getting collar sleeve and just working me over like I was a rag doll. Right. I remember the same thing with Edris, right? Just working me over with very basic, you know, fundamental jiu-jitsu. Maybe that's all it took to beat me up. Right. But it's what it worked. And I walked out of there thinking, you know, and I've been training a while. Right. I think I'm, you know what I'm doing sometimes. And that day I felt like it was day 1, week 1. You know?
Yeah, I always think back to a video that I saw, gosh, this is before I even did jiu-jitsu. It was BJ Penn talking about, you know, his jiu-jitsu, and he admittedly says, like, it's vanilla. It's basics. He goes, but it's advanced basics. And he goes, you take the fundamentals and you ram them down people's throats. Yeah. And I was like, that's exactly what I want to do every day of my life. I want to take fundamentals and ram them down people's throats.
Well, and if you look at, and not to bring this guy into the conversation, but I'm going to, if you look at Gordon Ryan, you know, some years ago, maybe he was a leg locker and he did some fancier stuff. And if you look at what he does now, he grinds you with pressure until you break. And then he gets mount and he does something from there.
Yeah.
And he just wears you out.
Yeah.
And that's all it is. You know, he will just grind you into the mat, you know, and there's nothing fancy about it. So
Yeah. So what about you? Where did you learn jiu-jitsu? Where did you start?
So I started in 2005 under a guy named Sean Burke, and it was in Illinois. So I was training actually traditional Japanese jiu-jitsu, Hakaru jiu-jitsu, under this guy Brian Smith. He had a black belt in that, and he had a black belt in judo.
Did you guys use swords?
No swords, no swords. Very, very similar to Aikido, but if like Aikido takes a football field, you could do Hakaru jiu-jitsu like in a phone booth. It was very close in. So I just started in law enforcement. I was in corrections at the time. I was a parole agent. And wanted to extend my stuff beyond what the basic stuff they did at the academy, and started training there. And he had a judo background, right? So we did some takedowns, and I had wrestled, you know, for a little while. So we did some takedowns, and we did some of this, and we did some of that, and we do back-to-back rolls. We started back-to-back. And then once a month or once every other month, we went and trained at this judo school that was nearby. And the judo school is run by a red and white belt. So a red and white belt in judo is a traditional rank. It's an honorary rank, very similar to like a red belt in jiu-jitsu. Okay. In Brazilian jiu-jitsu. And that's what this guy was. So he'd been teaching judo forever, and he was 150 pounds. You know, I think I was in my 30s. I was probably 280 pounds, you know, doing a lot of lifting. And, you know, stood across from this guy, and he's like, well, we're gonna start from our knees. And I'm thinking, all right, cool. You know, I got no problem with this. I'm about to smoke you, old man. And he put his hands on me, and they were like vice grips. And he just slowly started climbing up my body. Okay. And I had watched the first UFC like everybody did. That was their first exposure to jiu-jitsu, seeing this skinny little Brazilian dude, right? Just beat people up, 80 times his size.
Yeah.
And I was interested in it, but there wasn't a lot going on that
The
time.
anniversary of that's coming up.
Yeah. It's actually, if you haven't had a chance to watch that, you go to YouTube and find it. The production value is insane now, how much better it is.
Yeah.
Right. And what's Jim Brown doing announcing a football legend Jim Brown announcing guys beating each other up. But, kind of fast forward. So, I got out of that. I found jiu-jitsu, traditional, Brazilian jiu-jitsu, started training under Sean Burke. And funny story is he was a purple belt, right? So when I started, like becoming a black belt wasn't even a thought, because I had no idea what a black belt was.
Yeah.
Right? It was a purple belt. Kevin was his uke, who was a blue belt. And then there were a couple other blue belts, and there was a Sambo guy from the Ukraine who trained with us. And he was always interesting to roll with, but then it was just a bunch of white belts, and started training there. And the way the schedule worked, I could only train every other week because of the way my schedule was, just the way my days off overlapped with the training. And then, so that was in 2005 I started, and I didn't see my first black belt for a couple years until Sean's instructor came out and promoted him to brown belt.
Wow.
And when he came out, he was, like you get a lot of black belts are smaller guys for whatever reason, right? They're lightweights, and this guy, Pedro Carvalho, came out. And so at the time it was, Alliance was a big one, and Atos and Gracie Baja, but there weren't a lot of the big organizations like there are now.
Yeah. Atos was already big back then?
Yeah, Atos was a good size because I think they were pretty good back then. If I remember right. Maybe I'm kind of mincing it up. I know Alliance was huge.
Oh yeah,
back
always
then.
has been. Yeah,
Alliance was huge back then. But so anyways, his instructor comes out, and I was a blue belt then, right? I gotten promoted to blue, and I'm like, all right, 285 pounds, lifting weights, skinny little Brazilian guy. I'm like, I'm about to smoke this dude, and he's going to be like, you're the greatest thing I've ever seen. And again, put his hands on me, and the next thing you know, I'm looking up at the ceiling, and I'm like, I've made a grave mistake. You're probably wondering how I got in this position.
Yeah.
And it's
mistakes were made.
Mistakes were made.
That's
Mistakes
right.
have been made.
Right.
As
Shout
our
out Sierra.
Sierra, yeah. Solo Sierra likes to say, mistakes have been made.
Yeah.
And that was it, So started training, started in 2005, got my blue belt in 2007, my purple in 2010, 2011. And then I had a great idea that I was going to run for alderman in the town I lived in, and I got elected.
Oh shit.
Yeah. Right. So because I was always really involved. I always enjoyed doing stuff. Right. And I thought to myself, I feel like I could be good for my community. Like I'd always volunteered. I'd always helped people with stuff. And, kind of within everything, I'm going to go all in. Okay. I'm going to go all in. I walked there were wards. I lived in the 5th ward. I walked my ward 3 times and sent out 2 mailers, and I went all in, and I made promises. I'm like, hey, I'm always going to be approachable. I'm always going to be there. I'm always going to do this and that and blah, blah, blah. And I'm only going to do it for 4 years. But I'm not going to make a career out of this. I only want to do it for my 4 years. Got elected. And I said, if I didn't get elected, I'd never run again, because that's it,
Yeah.
So got elected, served my 4 years, and then that started taking away from jiu-jitsu because it was kind of time consuming for $8,000 a year.
Oh yeah, and you married me.
Oh, and then we
in
got
that
married.
time,
Yeah, but there was some other stuff. Got divorced.
You married an alderman?
Yeah. Yes, I did.
Fucking
Hook
married
herself
up.
to the gravy train of politicians, getting the road named after me. But, it was cool, like great experience. I learned about budgeting. I got to be in some contract talks, when we negotiated different collective bargaining agreements. I got to be involved in planning and zoning, some of the behind the scenes stuff. So it was a great learning experience. And that's everything I've always done, is I've always wanted it to be a learning experience to move the needle forward on myself and my life. Okay. And some other, I was married to Colin and Riley, our kids, mom at the time, and we got divorced, so there was some moving around and everything like that. And then, purple at 2010-ish, 2011, and then between 2011 2014, I drifted away from jiu-jitsu. And by 2014, I was completely out of it. Sean was a part-time, great instructor, awesome guy. Actually, I saw him the last Master Worlds I did, Gi Worlds, I think it was 2019? I don't remember.
No, it was 2021, I think.
2021, yeah, when a big group of us went out there. Sean was on one mat competing, and the next mat over was Paul Nava.
Yeah, it was cool.
No
So
kidding.
that was pretty fucking cool to see kind of the old and the new of my instructor still
Yeah.
getting after it, So I was
Yeah.
pretty stoked about that. I was super excited. We got a chance to catch up, Sean and I. And, really loved it. He promoted me through purple, but he was a part-time instructor or a part-time business owner. He was doing some traveling for work, and then ended up moving and shut down his academy by the time I thought I was going to get back.
So he had a
there.
business outside of jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
Correct. Yeah, he worked for he was worked for IBM for a while. He worked for a company called Orange for a while. He was always kind of in the tech solutions type sector, if I remember right. So he wasn't a full-time academy owner.
Gotcha.
So it just became too much for him to kind of do everything, and he was the only one really teaching it.
Yeah.
So he ended up shutting down his academy, and because right, it's not easy to run an academy.
That's not. No.
So I think by the time I wanted to get back in, it was the time his academy had closed down. And he actually went over to Alliance at one point because he'd go out to the East Coast, and he actually trained under Fabio Giorgel a few times and really kind of built a relationship with him. And now he's actually shuns in Tampa, or he's in Florida now, maybe Fort Lauderdale. But anyways, kind of long story short with that. So I was out of it between 2014 and 2018. Got promoted at work. I worked for Dominic's as an internal and external investigator. Dominic's was part of Safeway. They shut down. They got sold off. Actually got introduced to JP Morgan Chase, where I work now. Came on as an investigator doing internal investigations, code of conduct stuff, employees doing stuff they shouldn't do, those kind of things. And that was actually I'm coming up on 10 years now with them.
Is that like a human resources type position that you're working for them, and they're like, hey, we need this guy?
No, so we're separate from human resources. We're the fact finders.
Oh,
okay.
Gotcha.
So the allegation comes in. We do the investigation behind it. We do data analysis. We do video review if need be, transactional review. At that time, interviews with witnesses and that kind of stuff, and then provide the facts to human resources and employee resources, and they make the decisions on what's going to go on at that point. So
Gotcha.
we're absent that. So there is a little bit of what's the word I'm looking for? We're neutral in this, right? We're Sweden. We don't take a side either way. We just present what the facts are. Okay.
Yeah.
So I started there in January 2014. Fun fact, went to work one day and then took a sick day the next day.
Yeah.
Actually, I had the flu.
Oh, no shit.
I'm like, this is my first big boy job. I get to go into the city. And I remember coming home that night with like 104-degree temperature going, oh my God, this sucks.
Where were you living?
We were in Oak Forest.
Okay.
Yeah, we were in Oak Forest, Illinois.
Okay.
So traveling into the city. But anyway, so that was January 2014. Coming up on actually 10 years now, which is really kind of neat. And then I worked for a guy named Ron Philpott, rest in peace. He was a really great manager. A good other guy invested in people, right?
Yeah.
Really great guy to work for. And then it was June, July of that year, they were spinning up a new investigations team. And it was elder and vulnerable adult stuff. So anybody 60 years of age or older who's a customer of the bank, or anybody who's got a vulnerability 18 to 59, who's potentially getting, financially exploited or taken advantage of or fallen victims to scams. And financial exploitation is like, you appoint your son as your power of attorney, and he's like, oh, I got access to mom's money now. I really need a new car.
Oh, wow.
Or the caregiver who's the only person in this person's life because they've never had any kids or anything like that, or family, suddenly gets, added to their bank accounts, and they're like, I make $1,000 a week, but I really deserve $1,500 a week, or it's the, hey, you've just won the sweepstakes. All you got to do is pay us a few shekels to get your money. So we cover that kind of stuff. Right. So, it was handled under the regional investigations teams, the internal stuff, but there's a lot of timeliness to what we do. Sometimes stuff needs to get turned over within 24 to 48 hours. And it's hard to kind of change hats between, doing an internal investigation and then, oh, by the way, now I've also got this thing I've got to turn over in 24 hours because of certain state laws or federal laws we've got to follow. So they're like, here's what we're going to do. We're going to spin this off into its own separate group, and we're looking for volunteers, and we're going to appoint Ron to it. And I had a great relationship with Ron, very much enjoyed working with him. And I'm like, all right, I'll throw my hat in the ring. Great guy to work for. Right. So July 2014, I started with that new group, and I've been with it ever since. And it has just been spectacular for me.
That's great.
And started with this group, and by March 2017 they had a management position open up. There was a guy retiring, and they said, hey, you've been with us since the start, you're doing really great at this, would you like to manage a team here? I'm like, 100%. They said, but here's the deal, we've got an internal policy where you've got to have somebody within your geographic region that reports to you, and there's nobody else with elder vulnerable adult investigations that is in the Chicagoland area. So you're going to have to move. So they said, we'll give you 3 choices. And at this time, we were a small team at this point. We're huge now. We're really a good-sized team. They're like, you get 3 choices. You can go to Columbus, Ohio. I said, fuck you. We're not going to fucking Columbus, Ohio.
They didn't finish a sentence.
They didn't even get it out of his mouth.
Yeah.
I'm like, fuck you.
Yeah.
I'm like, because it's only 6 hours away. It's the same temperature. It's like, you got to be kidding me, right? And then they said, okay, good with Dallas, Fort Worth, which was kind of a close second because we had some
Dallas
friends and
ain't
knew we knew some people down there. But they were going to be changing offices, and there was some talk about they may be moving to another area. They wound up in Plano. So I didn't want to move somewhere. I wanted to be close to work, so it wasn't going to be a huge commute because at the time I had about a half hour to 45-minute commute, and I wanted to be closer.
Yeah.
And so, when they offered that, I'm like, there's talk about you guys going to Plano, but there's not a site picked out yet. And then the third one they said was Phoenix, Arizona. I said, boom, done, we'll go. And the reason being is we had just been out actually the summer before on a missions trip with Colin and Riley, went up to Tuba City, the Navajo res up there. Saw Phoenix. Chase Bank had a big footprint in Phoenix.
Drove through Flagstaff going, whoa, this is nice.
Yeah, I drove through Flag.
Yeah.
Understood what the temperature was like already because we were out there in July, August. So we understood what it was, what we were getting ourselves into. And plus, I had spent my entire life in Illinois, right? And I really kind of done everything I had wanted to do in Illinois, and even the surrounding area. Like, you knew the Midwest like the back of your hand, went to college in the Midwest. I'm like, I've never been outside the state. I think it's time for me to kind of grow up and go somewhere else. So, got promoted, moved out to Phoenix, February. Actually, December 28th, 2017. It was the first day out here.
Wow.
Yeah.
So I had a box of geese, right? Like a storage container full of geese, one of them black boxes with the yellow tops on it, And
we have many.
Yeah,
yes,
right.
yes,
Yeah,
we do.
that's why I bring it up because you guys are familiar with it. And I had geese in there. So here's the geese I had in there. I had a Padilla and Sons gi. I had a Howard Combat kimono. These are classic stuff, which I wish I'd have still had. I had another one from a company called Spartan Gi, which now they do the Spartan races. They were making gis at the time, but the cool thing was their gis were super Spartan. They just had one thing on it, right? And I loved it. There was nothing. They weren't all blinged up or nothing.
Yeah.
And a couple. I didn't even have any rash guards. I don't even know what the hell I had, right? But I'm like, we're moving. I had my purple belt, which I had 3 stripes and I ripped them off. I'm like, I'm coming out here fresh, baby. I'm like, I'm moving out here. I'm gonna draw a circle around where we live, and I'm not looking for anywhere more than 10 minutes away. Because if I got to drive a half hour or so, it's just why, it's got to be convenient for me. And there are a few places. Beauregard, what's his name? I can't think of what his name is off the top of but he had a place out here. There was a couple other schools that were around here. And of course, what's funny is it's small.
We had Arthur Ruff, and we had, who else was out here?
Yeah, there were a few other, but what's funny is so Danny O'Donnell, he and I actually trained together in Chicago.
Okay.
Yeah, and I remember him telling me, it was still when I was actively training, he goes to me, yeah, I'm moving. I go, where are you going? He goes, I'm going to move to Arizona. I really kind of want to make a go at it in jiu-jitsu. And I remember externally saying, awesome, man, that's cool, so proud of you. He was maybe a blue belt at that time, or just gotten his blue, and he's already thinking of making it. He was in the financial industry, thinking about making this move, and internally I'm like, you're an idiot. Why would you want to leave Illinois? Right? Why do you want to go to some Arizona where it's 958 degrees? But you're right. You come out to Arizona, we went up to Flag, and I'm like, these are freaking pine trees. Gorgeous. I didn't know it was so temperate like that.
Yeah,
like, I didn't know that's the way it was. So I think that's what kind of attracted us to it, too.
Yeah.
As we saw that there was different climates. It wasn't just cactus and rock and sand.
There's a lot of cactus and rock and sand, but yes.
Right, but there is. But, you go 90 minutes north, and you better chain up your tires if it snows.
Yeah.
So, moved out here, drew a circle around, reached out to some academies, and within a day, Paul reached back out to me and said, hey, yeah, awesome, come in, drop in, check it out,
He was the only one.
He was the only
Paul
one.
was the only one that responded.
Wow.
Because I knew about GD, I knew about GD's place out here and that kind of stuff, so I knew about some of the other bigger places, but Paul was super close, only got to respond, showed up. Daniel Kim was actually my first training partner day one.
Okay.
Yeah, it was actually pretty cool.
Yeah.
Trained with him, and I kind of got hooked.
That's cool.
But I mean, it took... That first year was rough.
It was rough.
God almighty, that first year was rough. Because I've been off 4 years.
Yeah.
You're starting over. And by the way, you're starting over as a purple belt.
Yep.
Right? So you're putting that expectation on yourself. right? And oh, by the way, your game was 4 years ago, and things had changed. And here's how I kind of explain it. Now, I'm not saying jiu-jitsu in Chicago was good, right? I think Carlson Gracie had a school out there, and he had a pretty big footprint out there. So there were some really good instructors out there, okay?
Yeah.
But I always kind of think like, look at you look at where the Brazilians, when they first moved to the States, like a lot of them moved to California.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
And then some moved to New York and some moved to the East Coast and Florida and all that kind of stuff. So everything kind of filtered into Chicago.
Yeah.
Okay. But everything that filtered into Chicago, when I looked at what I had and what I saw out here, it was almost like, look at the Mona Lisa. Now take a photocopy of it. Still looks like the Mona Lisa, but it's not as clear as the Mona Lisa.
Yeah.
Right. Now take a photocopy of that.
Yeah.
Right. And so what kind of filtered into Arizona, I think because of the proximity to California, where a lot of like Hickson, a lot of the Gracies first moved, was like kind of the very early art, filtered over this way,
Yeah.
All we had in Chicago was Naga, and maybe a couple other things. In fact, there was a year we couldn't train at all because the state of Illinois said, well, you guys got to be licensed under the boxing commission.
Oh my God.
So we actually had to go up to Wisconsin to train, to compete. Right.
That's
so
funny.
we lost some stuff at that point, but out here you guys had Grappler's Quest.
Yeah.
You had IBJJF in California where a lot of the stuff was being held.
Yep.
So there's a lot of more of an intense form. And I came out here and I just
5 hours from Vegas where they had a bunch of tournaments,
Right,
and then we had our own little league going on here. So
So it was a really competitive thing going on. And again, 4 years off the mat, trying to get back into it.
Yeah.
And I remember like training like with Dave Thomas, training with Sean Academia, training with a lot of these guys, training with you, going to Koa's class on Saturday morning and all that kind of stuff, like, but just getting freaking smoked, and I remember I signed a year contract. And by September of that year, I said to her, here's the deal. I said, I'm running out my year contract and I'm done. I said, I can't do it anymore. Everything hurts.
Yeah.
I don't feel like I'm getting better. I'm getting a living shit beat out of me. And I said, this sucks. I gave a go at it, did what I could. And I remember just by chance going to promotion one day, and I don't remember why they did a promotion on it. Paul did his, stripes or whatever, and called me up, gave me a stripe. Holy fucking shit. Paul believes in me. Right? No, seriously, right? Yeah. Somebody believes in you.
Yep.
Paul believes in me. That's it. I'm done. I never thought about quitting again.
Yeah.
Well, and we had that conversation because this was right around the time where I was learning that middle ground, not all or nothing. And I noticed it in him. And I was like, okay, let's think about this. Do you like jiu-jitsu? Because like if you genuinely like it, then why does it matter if you're good or not? Right? Like you don't have to do something just because you're good at it. Like I can be very bad at jiu-jitsu, but I fucking love it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
And so I think that perspective helped him a little too, and then he got the stripe, and that put him over the edge.
Well, at the time, let me think. It was me, Luis de Oliveira, John Cabay, Daniel Kim, Koa Kalama, Keola Kalama. I'm just trying to think of all
Blau.
the purple belts we had in that room.
Blau was a black
No,
belt.
Blau was a brown belt at the time.
No, he was a black belt.
Was he?
Yeah,
Black
I
belt?
remember walking into the first class and Paul, and I remember, Paul introducing me this and that. And I go, who's that big fucking guy in the corner? And he goes, oh, that's Dave Blau. He's a world champion black belt. He's a black belt world
6-time
champion. Yeah, and I look at him and I go, oh my God.
Yeah.
I mean, that's insane because he's not a small dude.
No, he's a big guy and he's very, very agile, very athletic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but he was
I
there.
think Chad Cleveland.
Yeah.
Another
Big
big
Booty Chad.
dude, and he
Yeah.
was there.
Yeah.
There was a big dude.
Yeah, but he was there. But then there was also another guy named Corey something or another. He had an Irish last name, but he was a black guy.
Oh,
with an Irish-
Corey. Yeah,
Corey.
yeah.
He trained with him.
Holy
Tough guy.
shit.
Brian Griswold. Brian Griswold,
Big
right?
Brian, yeah.
Right. So there were some big guys in there. JVB was teaching at the time.
Yeah,
And then Mike Kaplan.
Yeah.
So, but I remember just and no knock against Paul, and I don't want this to be a knock against his academy, but it was a little disjointed then. Because one day you would have advanced class on mat 1, but the next day you would have advanced class on mat 2, and the times were different.
And you didn't know who was teaching.
You didn't know who was teaching, and there was no
Remember
congruity between like the training. Like
Well-
Kaplan had come in and teach Enter the Matrix, and
Yeah.
the next guy, JVB, would teach something different the day after.
For a while, we had an influx of people coming from other academies we had Van Buren come in. We had Gerson come in. We had a guy named Daniel who's at Legion now. And Paul was just trying to figure out where to put these pieces, man. And these guys all had like day jobs. So it's like, oh, you can't be my 10 a.m. You can't be my 6 a.m.
Right.
And it was really difficult.
Nate Hagberg taught a class.
Yeah.
Nate Hagberg. Nate Hagberg was the no-gi instructor. Yeah. But no knock against any of that, because here's the thing. They were fantastic instructors.
Yeah.
I
very much, and you were there. You were teaching the morning classes or shortly after taking it over, but very much enjoyed it. But everybody here, as much as I hated how I felt on the mat and getting the crap beat out of me, everybody was super welcoming and super friendly to me. It was super awesome, And then they kind of tightened up the schedule a little bit, and, things have gotten, and that's the way it is. It happens. Things tighten up. It gets better. And like I said, I got that stripe. Never looked back. Said that's it. I'm doing this. And at that point, it really and because there were some advanced belts and there were black belts there, I've actually thought like, hey, maybe I could actually do something with this, and kind of see it out, not to the end, so to speak, but to the new beginning. Which is what that comes. And then, so got my stripe, got promoted to brown, then got promoted to black December 17th, 2022.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, that was pretty cool.
Yeah, there's that's always been. I don't know if it's that way at every academy. I'm sure it is. But I remember white belt. I told Aimee, I was like, hey, I'm going to go to this tournament, and I'm going to go watch, because I was brand new. I was a couple months in. And I wearing my little Paul Nava T-shirt, and I brought my iPad, so I had something to read, because I didn't know shit, And I just walked up to the bleachers, and I sat up kind of high. It was at the college, the Phoenix College.
Oh, yeah.
So I was at Phoenix College, and then there was this guy waving at me, and he goes, "We're over here." It's a guy named Ross. He left us when he was a purple belt. I don't know if he's training anymore, but he moved to, I want to say like Globe or something. He was like a physical therapist, finished his degree and moved out there. But I was like, okay, we're over here. And it was like, they just welcomed me in, and I was a brand new, I was a nobody. I was nothing, and then, so I don't know if it's that way everywhere, but it's certainly what we had, or we have at Nava's place. So
it was funny. So I started February. So like I said, I don't remember what the exact start of my class was, but it was January, February 2018. And then they had Nogi State. I went and competed. It was in June or July. And actually took second in my division.
Nice.
As a purple belt. And I went against, I remember, so, Paul always kind of like pays attention to who's signed up in your division and stuff. And say, you got 3 in your division. You got 4 in your division.
Yeah.
And it's like, I don't want to know.
Yeah.
I don't freaking care.
Yeah.
And so he goes to me, you got 3 in your division. And he goes, your first round is going to be against, blah, blah, blah. He used to train with us. Nice guy. But I want you to kick his ass. Right? So, right? Yeah. So there's that on me, right? I'm like, oh, awesome. I haven't even been here 6 months yet, right? But I ended up winning it by submission, and then went against a guy named Corey Ruff, I think, in the finals, and I gassed. Like, I had a really good, I hit a switch, I had like a really great move, and I was actually doing pretty good, and then I just freaking gassed,
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah, and then ended up losing. And I actually regret losing that match. Like, I regret losing a lot of matches, but that one I really do looking back at it. You know? But, I competed. I remember like Mamlin competed, Mike Van Osteen competed. There was a bunch of us competed that day, and it was really kind of a fun time. Yeah. And Paul was super, super, super supportive, like he always is with that kind of stuff.
Yeah. I think I got submitted at that tournament. Yeah. Yeah. I think I got submitted by, what's his name? He's a Maracaba black belt now, but I can't remember. I haven't seen him around. Yeah. Gosh, it'll come to me.
But I was
at 2:00 in the morning.
Yeah, I was a 235-pound ultra heavyweight then. Yeah, standing at a brisk 5'10". Yeah, Yeah, and then and competed a few times at ultra. Against some big dudes. That Marco Martinez, who's about 2 inches shorter than me, but about 40 pounds heavier, and has never been submitted in a tournament. But competes all the freaking time. Yeah. And I remember that was an IBJJF thing. And then at one point, I'm like, I can't stay at ultra heavy, so I went down to super for Nogi Worlds in 2019. And then is down to ultra now.
Shout out to Vin for keeping me alive.
Yeah, for that cut in Vegas. So it was we went out to Vegas that one time. We were out Anaheim.
Anaheim.
We all rented that house together and stayed out there.
Yeah, that was a good time.
So I remember I lost the second round. I submitted the first guy. and then I lost in the second round to this guy from Mexico. And then I remember we were sitting in that house. You guys had left.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we were there that night, and we're sitting there, open box of pizza, beer everywhere. I'm eating my third slice, and I'm talking to Paul and telling him, yeah, I'm gonna shut it down for the rest of the year, man. I'm so burned up. I'll wait till February and kick it back in. And then my phone buzzes, and it's Seth, and he's like, Alex Martinez and Doug Moore at 175.
Yep. I remember.
Yeah, fuck it, I'm in.
I remember going to that. Yeah, I remember that. I remember that promotion poster for it. You're dressed in your no-gi gear or whatever it was, and Doug's in a freaking suit and tie like he's your accountant.
Yeah.
Like I'm gonna, so
Yeah,
I remember that.
Everything on Doug at the time was at 154.
Yeah,
and then so he's
a few pounds heavier than.
Well, he walks around maybe 170.
Yeah.
He's the smallest 81 in the room.
Yeah.
He's a tough fucking guy, man.
He is.
So,
He's no slouch. He's
No.
got that Kimura trap.
Yeah.
And boy, he will punish you with it if you're not. Not good.
Was that fight to win the first time you guys matched up?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got my ass handed to me. But
it's really. I never like to watch you get your ass handed to you, but watching you and Doug fight is awesome.
It's a great.
It's
Well,
so
it's
awesome.
a good time.
it's on in December.
Yeah.
So we have a
Yeah.
gentleman's agreement that we're not going to pull guard, and we're going to fight at the Masters Cup. So
That'll be
I love
fun.
it. I love it.
So if I happen to fall, that's not pulling guard. So I'm just saying that's not pulling guard.
Doug, get ready. He's going to cheat.
Yep.
Totally gonna cheat. Totally gonna cheat. I love him. No one has ever pushed me as hard to train as Doug. Now my training partners push me hard in training, but no one has been in my head the way Doug is.
Yeah.
I text him from the bullpen at Master Worlds. I text him from the bullpen, and I just let him know, like, hey, thanks for everything.
Yeah.
Thanks for pushing me. I wouldn't be here. I can't believe I'm more nervous fighting you than I am fighting these guys. All that stuff. I love the guy, and I tell him that. So yeah, he did a lot for me.
I remember there was a tournament, might have been a Phoenix Open a couple years ago. It was at Westworld. I distinctly remember that. And you had beaten him the time before, and this time he beat you.
Yeah.
And he was telling you basically the exact same thing, like that you had pushed him to
Oh, I
work
remember
harder.
because he gassed the first time. The first time I beat him, he had gassed and he was pissed. He was so angry. So he brought it. He definitely and he kicked my ass that time. So yeah, that was good. That was really good. And then one time we were in the same bracket and he didn't show. And then he walks up with an earbud and I'm like, where the fuck were you? Dude, they called you. He got DQ'd.
Oh no.
He's like, no, we're not supposed to go till whatever. It's like, no, it was like an hour ago. So that was a bummer. Yeah. But didn't get to fight him. But listen, going for an hour and 30 minutes with a little intermission to fix the cameras. But I want to thank you guys for coming on the show, man. This was fun.
100% our honor.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's anything else you guys want to talk about, anything else you want to bring up, but no, this was really good.
Yeah.
This was excellent. Thanks you guys for doing it. Thank you for sharing your story. I know
Absolutely.
That's really cool. Yeah, man.
I'm a friend. I'm all about I hate competing, right? Like I hate, you guys see me. I'm throwing up before matches. But I do it, one, to remind myself that I can do hard things. And two, because I am an advocate not just for women in jiu-jitsu, but for super heavy women in jiu-jitsu, right? And I can't say, man, we need more competitors if I'm not going to be one of them.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So, like, shout out to all the women that are out there. Like, if you've thought about trying it, like, just come on, give it a try, man.
Yeah. Let's jump in.
Give it a shot. It's fun.
Yeah, it's fun.
Yeah.
Everybody
change your life.
started as day one,
Yeah.
week one white belt,
Yeah.
not knowing anything, right? Because I'll tell people, make a fist and throw a punch at me. Like everybody knows how to do that. All right, cool. Now take me down and pass my guard. And they'll look at you like I have no idea what you're talking about.
Yeah.
And I say, here's the thing, like benchmark yourself. You're day one, week one right now. 6 months from now, 6 months you is going to beat the shit out of you right now. And in 6 months, right, there's that learning curve.
Yeah.
You got to give it 6 months. You can't give it 2-3 weeks, right? But not even that, right? Like if your goal is to be a black belt, right? And that shouldn't just be your goal, right? Because once you get it, what's your goal then, right? It's nothing, right?
Yeah.
'Cause but you got to give it a 10-year commitment.
Yeah, for sure.
And imagine the things in your life you could do if you committed to it for 10 years.
Yeah.
Right? Like how much better you'd be. Minimum 10 years, right? You made it in 7-8 years, right? Some people it takes longer, but on average it's about 10 years.
Yeah.
Right?
6.5 for this guy.
Yeah. Give it a 10-year commitment. But here's the thing, right? Give it a 5 or 6 year commitment and get the purple belt, because at that point you've learned about everything you need to know. Now it's just about more time under tension, more time under the mat, grinding it out a little bit more, and getting that little bit more in to tighten up a few things.
Absolutely.
And that's it.
That's good. That's really good advice. Well, listen, everybody, I want to give a shout out to our sponsors. I want to give a shout out to my gi sponsor, Roll Union. Definitely want to give a shout out to our very first sponsor of the show was Bioprotein Technologies. Use the promo code Foxcast and you'll get $30 off your first purchase. There's no better way to get to boost your human growth hormone than this product. They do a morning and an evening little vial that you do sublingual, and it's a minute and a half of your time every day. But you will notice the difference. Like I'm telling you, within give it a good 2 weeks, and you'll notice a significant difference in your recovery and just overall the way you feel. And our newest sponsor, I want to thank our newest sponsor, Aries East Mesa Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and Aries for Ellsworth and Guadalupe in Mesa, Arizona. So thank you guys, and thank you guys again for being on. Oh, one last thing. If you love the show, if you hate the show, I don't care. Just give us a review, 1 star, 5 star. I don't care. But I want to get your feedback on the show. Like and subscribe on YouTube. We're trying to grow that channel, and we do a lot to provide something to you guys every single day on YouTube. So please, and Instagram. So please like and subscribe. It'll help us out a lot. Thanks, guys.
Cool.
Thanks.